You're listening to Two Babies of Business, a podcast about business, life, babies, and more. Today we're recording another episode in our series about artificial intelligence. We have with us a couple special guests. So Rubén and Dylan are new clients of CIPR Communications, and I guess not new to me. I've known Dylan for a few years now. We go back to our MBA days, and Rubén I met, I don't know what, maybe 4 months ago or so, Rubén. But they work together at a company called SAGA Wisdom, and they actually, the reason I wanted to bring them on to this into this conversation is because one, in our conversations as we were talking about digital marketing, I think maybe Dylan, you maybe mentioned something about an AI roadmap that you guys were working on. So that certainly piqued my interest. So my hope and goal today is to have a bit of a chat about how Saga is sort of approaching the AI conversation. They certainly share whatever they want to share, but really for me, it's all about process and kind of how to approach AI from a business perspective in terms of policies, in terms of rules for employees, those types of things. So welcome.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having us, Peter.
Perfect.
Thank you
So
so
before
much.
we get into the podcast topic du jour, I going to throw a little curveball at you because I love your name and I love your branding and I love what you guys are all about in terms of kind of how you guys position yourselves at trade shows. So can you give us a little, first of all, a little history into where the name came from and the sort of the branding and a little bit of that? That'd be great.
Sure. It was actually my co-founder, Darcy Fairbrother, found the name, I should say. And he was searching, sort of searching the internet for possible names, and he came across the Old Norse rune for wisdom. And that led us to the name Saga. Saga is the goddess of wisdom. And as a company, our tagline is wisdom and energy. So what we do is we are basically creating a digital platform that allows any of our customers who produce energy or work in the energy services space to access on-demand, cutting-edge learning for their needs. So Saga, as the Norse goddess of wisdom, sort of embodies what we want to do, which is this sort of idea of continual learning and continual betterness for anyone who's working in the industry.
Nice. Love it. And I just wanted to sort of comment on it because I think a lot of brands are afraid to be bold and afraid to be different. And I think you guys are both bold and different, but it aligns as well, obviously, with your core mission. So it's sort of a great fit in my mind. So thumbs up for good branding. Well done.
Yeah. Well, we're all nerds, so we don't always know where the line is in terms of too nerdy and or too bold, and so that's where it comes from.
Yeah, I think you guys nailed it. So good job. So we're talking about AI, and as I mentioned, you guys kind of in a conversation just sort of passively kind of talked about an AI roadmap, which definitely got my interest. And so, really, my goal with this podcast is just to make AI a little more approachable for small and medium-sized businesses, which I think fits you guys well. So I'm a little bit curious about, how do you as a company approach AI? I know that's a really broad question, so maybe I'll add some caveats or sort of sub questions to that. But do you guys have obviously have a bit of a roadmap? Do you guys have a playbook? Do you guys have policies and procedures internally? Do you have ongoing meetings? Sort of, can you just kind of lay that out for me and help me understand?
Yeah, so I'll definitely get Ruben, who's our CTO, to get into the details of the playbook. But for us, the journey, I guess, has started. Well, actually, it started when we started the business. So we employ some form of AI when we transcribe our videos on our courses, and there's certain ways we were already, I guess, using AI as a very general term. But when it came to generative AI, it was really back in December. Ruben had mentioned he was playing around with GPT for a couple things, and I delved into it because I didn't know what it was, and excuse me, kill that. So so I delved into GPT because I didn't know what it was, and I think like everyone did when they first experienced it, sort of became immersed in it, and it was a productive / very unproductive morning for me. But we realized, okay, we have to do something, and so I guess like the way we approached it, and I think the way any small business should approach it is start thinking about, okay, how could this help your customers, but or maybe it's how can we help our internal stakeholders be more efficient or things like that. And we just started brainstorming and ended up building a generative AI sort of product or feature within our platform that's gotten a lot of traction and interest. So that's sort of the top down or outside in sort of thing that we were doing, is trying to figure out, okay, what works for our customers. I can get into more detail on that, but maybe it's good to turn it over to Rubén to talk a little bit about what our AI playbook is, or what our journey's been so far in terms of process.
Yes, about like the how we approach AI as a company. Well, we are a startup, and I'm going to base on a description from Eric Rice on the Lean Startup book. Says that a startup is a human institution designed to create a new product or service under conditions of extreme uncertainty, right? And we were surprised by how fast AI grew in importance. So when we see that grew, we say, okay, we need to start using it, and not only to go ahead, but to stay on track with other companies, because everyone is going to use it. So we need to start using it in some way. We were trying to find a way, and the easy way to do it is using our knowledge in the company and the product that we are delivering to leverage AI there. And that's the beginning of Mímir, that is a rack system for AI. And about the AI playbook, it's evolving. We started to create like a draft of AI playbook. We have like vision and objectives, how use internally AI, because there are a lot of things moving on, like customer data that should not go outside of the company. So those kind of things needs to be really clear on how to use those tools. Data collection, ethics,
Nice.
Those kind of things.
Nice. Do you guys, this is sort of a bit of a side note, but do you think that this is a topic in your industry for your clients in terms of like how to actually create a playbook? What are the things you should be concerned about? Like, obviously you guys are in the training and education space. Like, do you feel like this is actually an area for you guys in terms of offering some training and education and clients as well?
It's funny, yeah. I don't think any of us had thought of that as an offering, but it absolutely, I'm sure it could be. I always like to canvass our customers before saying whether I think this is something they would want or not. But yeah, I mean, locally where we are right now in Calgary, obviously the Suncor hack exposed just how vulnerable companies can be in terms of security, and AI. I mean, again, there's security issues there, right? So I'm not a security expert. Rubén's his specialization is in security. But we have these conversations pretty much, I would say monthly on, what are, if any of our security vulnerabilities, what are they? What do we need to be thinking about? And the reality is that secure, like I don't see it, at least it hasn't been our experience, that information security is something that you just approach once and you set your rules, your business rules, and you say, okay, this is how we're operating, we're safe. It changes as the customer evolves and the company evolves. And so I would assume it's going to be very similar for all these companies right now. They have employees right now that are searching on GPT for answers. that information they're using for questions could be sensitive. It may not be, but either way, that's an information out thing. So I think, I guess the long answer to your question is yes. I think there's definitely value in some sort of training for companies on how to set up maybe some policies around AI that don't restrict its use in terms of the benefit, but also safeguard company information.
I really, really love how you phrase that. And I think, I want to kind of sort of zero in on that point, because I think a lot of the people that would be listening to this podcast are probably, fairly small businesses with various levels of sophistication. And I think, what we're seeing with AI, generative AI, with some of these ChatGPT tools and some of the others, is that everything you put into these tools has the potential to become part of the tool's training model and or sort of no longer belongs to you as information. So I think it's a really critical point for conversation in companies as to, okay, what can we sort of, if we're going to experiment around with this or play around with this, see how it could work for our company, what types of information can we put in, who can put it in, who sort of can do things and who cannot. Sort of a lot of kind of conversations around the what and the who, I think, is really important as a starting point, right? It's just sort of a basic understanding about, okay, what are some of the risks of these tools when it comes to security, when it comes to data, when it comes to all these things, right? Even just having, I think even that, I don't know. My sense is that a lot of companies currently right now aren't, it's not even on their radar as something that they need to be thinking about, right? So starting point is just get it on your radar as something to start thinking about, and then have some conversations internally. So on that note of conversations internally, is an AI sort of an ongoing conversation from a, I don't know, leadership team perspective? Is this an ongoing, a standing item on one of your agendas somewhere? Can you tell me a little bit about how you guys do that?
Yeah, we haven't. I mean, we've talked about putting it as a standing item on our agenda. So far, we haven't had to because, it's at least once a week. Rubén and I and some of the other exec are talking about AI, and it's honestly, it's more to do with passion and excitement that's driving us to do that. So that's really was the first step for us, right? Is just like get excited, get something out the door that you can validate with customers.
Mhm.
And then start thinking about, okay, what could be next. So yeah, we don't have a sort of standing meeting, but we have projects that we're actively working on in AI, and that drives that process.
Nice. And then do you guys have sort of, I guess, is this part of your playbook, like a fairly formal, here's the policies when it comes to AI and here's what you can and cannot do? Is that currently exist, or is that something that's being worked on?
We are
Yeah,
working on it. Yeah, we are working on it. It's evolving. Like
Yeah.
at this moment is general because we are still experimenting,
Yeah.
like how to use it and the best way to use it. But definitely something that is going to evolve.
And I think something that's really important for people to understand when it comes to this conversation is that the tools are evolving really quickly. And so, one thing I've heard on a few podcasts that I listen to regarding AI is that, just because something is this way today doesn't mean in 4 months it's completely 100% different. You know what I mean? And so, this is an iterative process for everybody, right? And nobody's going to be nailing it and have it perfect right out of the gate. It's just not the way this is going to work, because the tools are evolving, and the amount of tools and I'm expecting over the next 4 weeks Google is going to release a whole bunch of things in their tech stack that's going to eliminate probably 50 apps that have been created. You know what I mean? And so literally it's like last week we used this, tomorrow we're using Google. This is how this thing's evolving and how quickly. So I think, being nimble and sort of flexible is a really key thing. um yeah. In terms of kind of the sort of medium and long term, do you see AI having a fairly significant impact on kind of your business operations, on some of your offerings in terms of how you offer? I think personally, I think the educational space is going to be quite disrupted by this. I'm curious what you guys think about that.
yeah. So yeah, yes and yes. So medium term, we've seen already some incremental benefits to using generative AI. Just to explain a little bit what our product Mímir does within our learning platform is it allows people to contextually search that information that's in there so they can ask open-ended questions about anything. What we've done is and this is where, it's a good reminder to companies that, ultimately, like, you got to take control, right? So the way it works is that Mímir will only answer information that we provided it through our learning materials. So we've kind of created some walls in order to give confidence for the users using it that they are asking a question and they know where the answer is coming from. It's not just coming from some, overly active person on an internet forum spouting lies. So that's part of it. And then what we've done with Mímir as well is you can actually see the sources that within our training material that it's getting the information from, and you can click on those. So it's also auditable. So it's defensible, it's auditable, and it makes it a lot quicker for someone who wants to learn something to very quickly get an answer they need. So those are sort of like the first incremental benefits we see, making learning professional development a lot more efficient. If you can trust the source or at least have a more reliable source, then your employees aren't just searching the internet for answers, they're searching material that's been curated. Long term, I think there's plenty of opportunities. Well, it's early to say, but there's plenty of opportunities to see this completely change the way professionals in energy work. So this industry has a lot of data. We're buried in data, and most of the people who do technical work, you'll hear it constantly that at least half their time is spent retrieving that data and trying to find out where that data exists. Unlike, say, the telecommunications space, this industry has not consistently adopted standards for how information is stored and how it's formatted. So that presents a really good opportunity for generative AI, because if you can imagine someone spending half their time just searching for or looking for information through old-fashioned ways of doing it, and then here comes the technology that has the ability to interpret what you're looking for and then scour mountains and mountains of data and bring in the results. That's going to be a huge time saver, and I think it's going to change, how we work in this industry.
Yeah, I think it's going to have a big impact. Yeah, so just, I guess, maybe for clarification, I'm just reading Ruben's note here, is so Mímir is a RAG system. So maybe, Ruben, can you kind of just explain a little bit the difference between a RAG system and a large language model? I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah, and I'll be quiet.
Basically, with what is a RAG system? Like it's retrieval augmented generation, right? And what we do is we provide a context. So the large language model, that is the one that will kind of understands what we are trying to say or what we're trying to ask, is going to take that question, put it some context, get some documents where the data is sourced, and try to generate a response based on it. So that's the way that a RAG system works. Like we have like the large language model that will understand the question and also give the answer, and we have also other items there to retrieve the documents and do the searching and parsing.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so I think kind of obviously large language models are trained on very, 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 very big data sets, but they also are predictive in the sense that they sort of predict the answer based on the words that you provide. Whereas I think what you're talking about is more like it actually goes in and sort of looks for the answer in a smaller data set and really just provides the answer. from the data. Is that a fair kind of assessment?
Yeah, exactly. It's limiting like the information that they will use to generate an answer. Basically, is that by using a prompting engineering, and all those kind of things.
Conceptually, yeah. It's interesting because I can see sort of this RAG model, these RAG systems really being something that I think businesses can adopt probably more quickly. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of conversation around, customized large language models and sort of, enterprises bringing large language, creating their own large language models or using open source large language models to train on their data. But I think probably for a lot of use cases, probably this RAG system is much simpler, much quicker, and achieves something. I think, Dylan, to your point of creating some efficiencies within the organization around just here's the data, it's quick to retrieve, off we go, right? So I can
It's the
see
first
that.
approach.
Yeah,
It's the
that's
first
awesome.
approach.
Good for you guys. That's fantastic. Do you guys see obviously these open source LLMs and some of this that's going on in the industry? Do you guys see that as something that is a tool that a company like yours would be delving into at some point, or is it? And if it's too early to answer that question, I'm okay. just tell me.
I think that is totally doable to use those open source large language models. Why? Because that allows you to use it in your premises or in your own infrastructure. So you don't need to get out your data in order to use a large language model. So that will something that I think that most of the people or most of the companies want to do is use their knowledge
Yeah.
with their own large language model without hitting or exposing the data outside.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And we're seeing obviously some enterprise level sort of licenses coming out that are supposedly going to protect people's data. There's questions out there whether actually you can trust that or not. So that's sort of a not a discussion for this conversation, but it's going to be interesting to see how kind of that evolves. I mean, I see enterprise companies really adopting that more quickly, and probably smaller, medium-sized companies maybe going down more of a path like with what you guys are doing here.
Yeah. But in it might be interesting, Ruben, to elaborate on this, but because, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, like your foundation as a company is having a good information security plan and strategy. And my guess is that if you've got that figured out, then you bring in AI and you see how that meshes with your information security plan, and then you see whether there's any holes or any conflicts. Like I guess I want to reiterate with what we're doing is number one, the data we're sourcing is all built within our products, so it's our data or our instructors' information that we license. But we are bound by confidentiality agreements, basically in our licensing agreement that says we have to tell our customers where their information is stored, and we have to protect that. So I think it is, as long as you've got well, I shouldn't say this, but as long as you've got it, but it starts with that foundation of having a good security plan. And if you have a good security plan that you're revisiting, then hopefully when you bring in AI, you're going to be able to see where there's problems and where you're covered.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yes, for sure. Like, yeah, that's totally true.
I think so. And I think I'm going to add to that, Dylan, and just say, obviously, the old garbage in, garbage out. You also need good data and good information and sort of well-organized data information and sort of, accurate. You guys obviously you're utilizing sort of course material and that type of thing, which is obviously well vetted, well thought through, right? Like it's sort of like you got a great sort of foundation from which you're actually, sort of retrieving data. But if you're not a company that has good data in the first place, I mean, I think a lot of this stuff isn't even gonna be of any value to you, quite frankly. So that's maybe a good starting point conversation is what's our security system like, and our confidence in our sort of online security, but also like what is our data like, and is there even any value? Because one of the things I really love that you said, Dylan, to start this conversation is you talked about productive and unproductive time and playing with some of these chat GTPs, and I'm predicting that AI is going to be an extreme time saver eventually, but it's going to sure waste a lot of time in the meantime of people trying to just figure out these things and how to use them and things changing, and you know what I mean? So
Well, so I think, like, in AI, people talk about model interrogation, right? And really understanding, what are the limitations of your model, and that, we've been doing that in the industry with machine learning for a long time. I don't see this as any different. Like, you still have to interrogate your model, and the fact is it's the large language model is going to give you wrong answers sometime. So for us, knowing where the information is coming from is really important, because then you can go in and manually validate that model is giving you the answer it needs. And that manual validation is a lot quicker because the model's already told you, these are where the most likely pieces of information are.
nice.
Another thing that yeah, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Another thing that I wanted to talk about is like the feedback loop, that we actually put a feedback loop for our learners to give us the feedback if the answer is good or not. That is important for us, not only the manual, but we will know, like, if we are doing a good job with the system or not. And that feedback loop will give us the opportunity to evolve our application.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to add. And correct me if I'm wrong, this is an assumption, but you probably have that feedback loop in the initial input as well, in the sense of, obviously, your students are giving you feedback on the course and the instructors and the materials and everything else, probably on a fairly consistent basis. So you already have some sense of, like, the data in is probably pretty solid, and then it's just a matter is the tool kind of providing good outputs as well, right? So it's sort of almost like a double feedback loop, right? Yeah,
yes,
that's awesome. Nice. Cool. Well, that's all I had on my list of questions. Unless you guys have any kind of famous last words, we can cut her off there. And I just wanted to thank you guys. I think this is a great conversation. You guys are obviously, I think, from conversations I had with businesses and entrepreneurs, you guys were leading the charge when it comes to AI. So good for you guys, and I think also leading the charge with some awesome branding. So 2 thumbs up for you guys.
Thanks, Peter.
So thanks for your
thanks,
time.
Peter.
Okay.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Two Babies in a Business. To learn more, visit CIPRcommunications.com or catch us on our socials at CIPR Comms.